Greetings, Commanders! Welcome to the Flare Breakdown video. Oh boy, we've been waiting a long time to do this one. Well, there hasn't been any urgency, right? Flare's not a late game commander, but I'm getting a lot of new viewers on the channel that have a lot of questions about Flare. So let's just throw this thing out there and introduce everybody, or reintroduce everyone to Flare. Flare is your beginning B-class starter commander. You know, everyone's got a history with their Flare. He did the majority of your Explore missions. You killed your first monsters with him. Hell, you probably attacked your first ship with a Flare. Flare is your typical 20% guaranteed hit entry-level beginner commander. Of course, my Flare looks a little different than most. He's an S-class Flare, and he also does come in a evil variant. That event comes around every once in a while. You can get a different skin. Side note, if you get the opportunity to get this skin, I highly recommend it. It is by far the worst skin in the game. It is just truly ugly. Nothing redeeming about it at all. So, going back to the original skin for the sake of the video, let's talk about his flavor text and then we'll jump into it. First things first, once attached to the ISF. Boy, they were hanging on to the lore back then. Once attached to the ISF, the Interplanetary Strategic Force, Special Division, and later killed his supervisor. News came out that his supervisor was bribed by the enemy into providing false information that led to the massacre of Flare's personal squad. So news came out that his supervisor was bribed by the enemy to... Okay, so basically someone told Flare's boss to tell everyone else that, go do something, which led to Flare's squad being killed. So anyway, Flare, I guess, he left? I don't know. He's a bad dude. Well, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. He's like Captain America. He does bad things for the right reasons. All right, so what's important about Flare? First thing is that he has a 20% guaranteed hit skill. He's the only commander in the game with a 20% damage-based guaranteed hit skill. The reason I say damage-based is because other infantry commanders have guaranteed hit skills, but they don't directly relate to his weapons or scale with his weapons per se, and they don't necessarily crit. As a general rule, the dodge meta in the first 10 million leadership of the game is very important, so 20% guaranteed hit is a great way to make sure you don't just get into fights where you miss, which is not totally uncommon, early game anyway. Once you get Gemini and Sagittarius, you can get more ways to trigger guaranteed hits, which are very important to every commander, not just Flare. But yeah, so he's got a 20% guaranteed hit, and it says, what's interesting, it says, this time the attack will hit and ignore 18% of their buff. What that really means is it ignores 15% of their research, their haul, their gear. Pretty sure all those things. So it scales essentially like 15% bonus damage. Now, technically, if a person has, like a plasma, for example, is stacking HP, then Flare will hit even harder against him, as opposed to someone like Rogers, who typically stacks defense. It's one of those things where you kind of have to do the math and really scale it out and provide a lot of proof to really go in depth, and you just to really understand it. But you don't have to, right? You're not going to go that far with Flare. He doesn't have a guaranteed double damage hit like Golem. It's not a super powerful skill. I tested in Ace anyway, just for peace of mind, to make sure it's not misworded. It literally means if you normally hit for 100,000 with a 20% variation, so 80,000 to 120,000, just add 15%, and that's what this ability does. It just hits a little harder. Now, it does stack with Gemini and Sagittarius, so those abilities, well, Sagittarius will get the bonus, and the first hit from Gemini will get the bonus, so that's nice. No game changer there, nothing secret. All right, then he has a 40% skill, which basically just lowers the enemy accuracy. Man, that's really good early game, right? Guaranteed hit's a problem. Lowering your enemy's accuracy punishes them if they're not using a guaranteed hit. But the fact is that people will start maining Chief, Medusa, Golem, Rogers, Vega, the guaranteed hit commanders early on. So even though this does help, if they trigger their 40% skill, which is only 40%, it overrules it. So it's got a limited use, lowering enemy accuracy, not so great. Great for Ranger fights and GB, but that's not where we want to take this conversation. All right, so he's got the typical Airship Awakening. Because people watching this are probably still using Flare, the way you want to build him is there's two types of way to build infantry commanders, right? There's the Dodger boss, and then there's the Buster boss. Dodger or Buster. Dodger or Bust. Dodger may as well be well, you could go pure defense, right? With Dodger, Ares, Pisces, dodge item here, and then void chess piece, and then, you know, Dalmas 6 is it for dodge in the helmet. You could go pure dodge everywhere, and then weapon, and then stack Pisces and Aries and make yourself a real dodge boss commander. But Flare is not really good at that because he only gets one trigger per turn, unlike the X and Stella who get multiple turns, who have multiple times to trigger. That may have been an advance. If that last paragraph did make a lot of sense to you, don't worry about it. You will catch up with that knowledge soon enough. But for now, all you need to worry about is building some crit early on because you won't have the research to always guarantee a crit hit. So make sure your crit gets up to 100%. You can use items like Whisper and Soul Eater. You'll get good crit out of those items. Just get it up to 100% on both items, or factor in what your research is and just base it off that. But I don't necessarily recommend Whisper more than one at least. Get one Whisper early on just to make sure you always crit damage. Because that way you can always do double damage, or if you have, you know, bonus to crit damage like Skywalkers or Eye of Abyss helmets, those will increase that further. But I think we're getting a little too advanced for the sake of this video. Let's just dial it back. Build Flare balanced. If you're still using them, you haven't hit that 10 million mark, you haven't got him to S-Class yet to absorb him into someone else, you know, dodge on the pants with Nixaw, or start with Gales, right? Then get speed of, or start with the Gale, then get Speed of God, and then get Nixaw pants. If you want to get damage in the pants, you can always get from Magiwell, but because you're an infantry class and you're really dependent on not getting hit at all because of how squishy infantry is, they're glass cannons, you're better to go with the dodge. It's just a good all-around build. It's good for killing monsters, but if you did want to go a PvP build with one slot bus where you only use one slot of troops so you have low risk, yeah, you would go all damage in the pants there, but let's not get too out of control with this. Let's try to keep this thing, you know, I don't know. Yeah, you know, not too far off the home base here because this is pretty advanced stuff. Pangolin, Shaledra, either one is fine until you get a Black Knight or a Body of the Phoenix or a Void. You know, you can get Armor of the Tyrant too, but anyone that can afford Armor of the Tyrant's probably not running Flare anymore. The main thing about Flare is to know is that he's a 20% guaranteed infantry commander, right? Neko Jiro, the cat sniper, is the only other commander in infantry that has a guaranteed hit, and Nekojiro's is 40%, which is all the money right there. That's what you want. You want that 40% hit, not the 20% hit. If guaranteed hit is something you're into, which isn't bad, right? That's the early meta is very important. Then Nekojiro is the next step. First off, it's easier to get Nekojiro to S-Class than it is Flare, so your Nekojiro will probably be at S-Class before your Flare. Now, the game has changed since the last time I started, and it is a lot easier to get B commanders now with the mobilization events and just more quests being around. But yeah, Nekojiro is the natural evolution of Flare. So once your Flare is to S-Class, absorb him into Nekojiro, pump your skills up, and then decide if you want to keep Nekojiro or transition him into a different, you know, research entirely, or, you know, get your Stella and X game, or get the X or Stella and decide to go that way. But that's Flare. I mean, that's what he does. You know, he guaranteed hit 20%. That's just what he does, man. He's a entry-level commander. He's got the early game meta taken care of. His job is just to make sure that, you know, you're every time you run into an opponent, even if you're vastly outnumbered, you have a 20% chance to trigger that skill, and at least you'll be able to do something in a fair fight or an unfair fight. So let's try and get. There we go. I don't know why that took so long. All right, so let's grab Flare real quick. We'll load him up with some troops, and we'll take him to fight this fella here. I've been running all my simulations on this one fighter that he's got a golem there with tier 10, and I've got some tier 10 infantry. And I know those troops don't look normal to people, but this is a high-level video looking back. So whatever troops look familiar to you, tier 2, tier 4, just assume those are in the same position against, you know, the opposite side. There we go. All right, here we go. So you'll see that we don't really care about the first strike because you know, he dies anyway, but we want to just look at the damage on the airships in slot 2. So here's a regular hit, just basic hit, 131,000 crit. We did crit, 131,000. I don't know if I put crit gear on, let's see. Here's Light of Gemini. It should be 131,000, give or take 15%, all right, 20%. So there it is, a little low out that time. But that's exactly what we expected. Of course, he's going to kill us that time before we get another chance. And we'll run that one more time just for peace of mind, just so we have a little more reference material. I wanted this to be a shorter video, but, you know, it's the Flare video. We may as well prove this stuff and put it in a video, so at least, you know, in the future, if they do change it, we'll be able to compare it back. So here's another basic hit. Lowers their accuracy. 130,000, 112, a little low. So it looks like 120 is about the average. And there's a big crush. All right, here comes another hit. Give me that heat-seeking missile. Yeah, heat-seeking missile is only 20%, so it is hard to land. Fortunately, my front row and back row do the same damage because of the helm I'm using, so we can count the back row's damage as well. So let's see if we can get a heat-seeking missile on that one. Come on, baby. Get lucky. There it is. Heat-seeking missile. 120,000 is what we're looking for, but we're expecting 135. Oh, 115. So either this golem isn't wearing a lot of HP gear at all, because you don't get research bonuses in Ace, which is where we're testing this. But you can tell that heat-seeking missile didn't do any bonus damage. And if you've ever been hit by an enemy monster that has heat-seeking missile, you may think it hits really hard because it kills some of your troops when maybe you don't normally lose troops, but really it's just a pretty basic, generic guaranteed hit skill. So that's Flare. I hope this video was helpful to you. I hope it answered a lot of questions you were kind of, sure about anyway. You probably already knew that Flare wasn't that great, but this is the video to prove it. The next video will be Nekajiro, who is tremendously better than Flare and easier to get to S-Class. So before you commit too much to Flare, if you haven't already, start using Nekajiro or a different commander class by going through all these videos in my lexicon here. So if you're a new player, maybe you just searched Ark of War Flare, and this is the first video that came up. My name is Melt. I have over 120 videos at this point. I have 40-something, at least 20 commander breakdown videos, meta breakdowns, gear, anything Ark of War related, it's in this channel. So subscribe down below, hit the bell icon for new videos, and if there's ever a question you have about this game, just type in YouTube, Melt space AOW space whatever the topic is, and that should be keyworded right to the top of the list, and you should be able to find the answer you're looking for. If not, ask me in the comments below. Someone will help out if I don't directly help out. So thanks for watching this video. Yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.